We'd like to pull all of the media that you saved last week into our project file. To do that, you're going to go up to the Add Media. From home, you can add media from just about anywhere. From here at school, you're always going to want to use Files and Folders, where we've been saving things into your U-Drive Computers folder. You'll simply go out to the folder where you have your pictures and where you have your music located, and you'll select it. Remember the Shift key feature, and remember the Control key feature. When you have all of the pieces and parts, music and pictures that you want, you can just click on Open and it will import them. I'm going to say Cancel because I've already imported my music and I've already imported my pictures. If you'll notice in the Project Asset window, there's my pictures, and here's some of my titles I've been experimenting with, and down here is my music. I'm going to go ahead and start putting my pictures in. I'm using an example of my theme being diabetes, but your theme was whatever was your interests were. So my theme's a little different than yours, but we're going to go with it just for the example of the pictures. I'm going to drag this picture in, and I'm going to drop it in the timeline right next to my title. I'm going to use the scroll, the zoom in and zoom out scroll, to zoom in a little bit. It may at first look like I have made this play longer, but if you'll notice, right now, my playhead or my scrubber is at 9.26 seconds. If I zoom in even further, it's still at 9.26. So by zooming in, I'm not really making it play longer. I'm just getting closer to the board so that I can see it better. Most of the time when I'm working, I work from about this distance away from my timeline. Remember, this is your timeline because these are increments of time. Be careful when you're bringing your pictures in. Don't allow your pictures when you bring them in to overlap the previous picture. If you overlap the previous picture, it will cut the part that you overlapped and it'll stick that at the end of your picture, of your last picture. So now I've got the picture of this guy, my boy, who has diabetes, and then I've got the picture of this guy, and then I've got the picture of my son again. So you never want to overlap your pictures when you bring them in. I'm going to Control Z or Edit Undo, or just go down here and click Undo. When you're bringing your pictures in, make sure you bring them in. Don't leave a gap and don't overlap. Okay? You can also bring your music in. Put your music at the very beginning of your project. But I do want you to notice, if you overlap your pictures when you start dropping them in, I'm going to grab this picture of Nick Jonas, who is also a diabetic. Notice what happens if you overlap the pictures. It doesn't just cut the picture that you overlapped, but because it had to cut this picture and move this picture, it cut the music. So you'll end up messing your project up. I'm going to Edit Undo. Make sure when you drag a picture in that you drop it up next to the last one, but don't let it overlap and don't leave a gap. So I'm just going to drag my pictures in here. And you can drag them in any order you want. The order that they are here doesn't necessarily matter. Notice that once you've added a picture, you get this green little bubble here. That lets you know that you've used this picture at least one time already in your timeline. You can use it more often than that, but for the most part you probably wouldn't. But even still, it's just letting you know you've already used it. Once you get all your pictures in and you get your music in, you're going to go down to the bottom here where it says Transitions. I can actually close my Project Asset window for now because I've moved all my pictures in and I've moved my music in. Open up your transitions window. There are many different categories of transitions. Doesn't matter which group that you use, and I'm going to ask that you use several different groups because I want you to explore and experiment with this piece of the program. So I might go up here into 3D motion, and I might grab a spin away. If I click on it, it's going to show you what it looks like to transition from image A to image B. If you like what it shows you, drag it out and drop it on the picture. Please notice, don't drop it on the one picture. Don't drop it on the other picture. Drop it between the two so that it is right between where those two pictures meet. And then let it go. This window will pop up. Make sure it says between clips and say done. If it will not let you do that, it means you have a tiny little fragment of a picture in between these two pictures, or you have a tiny little gap between these two pictures, and so transitions won't work for you. But if I zoom in, you can see that transition. It is right between the two pictures. If you want to get rid of it, you can click on it and delete it. It goes away. If you want to change it to a different transition, just grab a different transition out there, drop it over top of the old one, and it becomes the new transition. Real quick, I'm going to press play so you can see what a transition looks like. There's all different kinds of transitions. I'm going to ask that you explore and experiment with many different kinds in your project. I'm going to go ahead and add a transition between the next picture. Maybe I'll choose a zoom. I'll go out here and look at my zooms. I'm going to use this zoom, drag it out there, drop it between the two pictures, and say done. Now I'm going to press play and let you see what that zoom looks like. And that's how you add transitions. The next piece that I want to add is how do you time it out so that one picture switches to the next picture at a precise moment in the music. To do this, you're going to want to be able to see your audio track. I'm going to go ahead and take my audio track and make it bigger so that I can see left and right audio. So this means I have stereo sound, left audio, right audio. The yellow line in the middle is your volume control. For the most part, I always suggest that you leave your volume right in the center where it is by default. I want to look for an area that is close to this area. I want to look for an area that is close to this area because that's where these two pictures come together. But I want to find an area close to that area to transition from this picture to this picture. So I'm going to listen. I don't even want to watch up here. I'm going to watch down here and I'm going to listen. Okay, I really like where it's transitioning right now. It's falling. It's falling exactly on that spot. So I got kind of lucky. This one transitions at the exact moment that the music changes. Notice that my transition appears on that line on my playhead that is also on that exact moment in the music. Let's go see where we fall with the next picture. I hope that you can see, or better yet hear, that in this area there was a major change in the music, and it probably is going to be our best spot to change from this picture to this picture. So I'm going to take my playhead and I'm going to move it to that spot where I want it to change. Now, I need this, the beginning of the transition, to line up exactly with this. This is where we start to use our trim tool. Notice what happens to my mouse pointer when I get to the edge of a picture. It turns into a red bracket. That red bracket can face to the left or the right. When you're trimming when you're trimming your images to time them out with the music, you want your bracket key to always be facing left. Because facing to the left means that it is only going to affect the picture on the left. We do not want to affect the picture on the right. We only want to affect the picture on the left. Now, with my trim tool facing to the left, I can now drag and make that picture on the left longer, or I can drag and make that picture on the left shorter. In this case, I do want to make it shorter. So I'm going to drag it to the left a little bit. I'm trying to bring the beginning of the transition to that exact moment. I've got to go a little bit farther, so my trim tool is facing to the left. Once it's facing to the left, I can click and hold, and in this case, I'm going to drag still to the left. I've got them lined up perfectly. The transition begins where my playhead is. My playhead is in the exact location where the music is. Let's go back and press play to see how that sounds. Okay, let's just say I want it to trim to the right a little bit. So I'm going to listen to this next one. I'm going to go ahead and have it switch with this little beat here. Notice that I'm going to now have to switch it to the right. Well, first of all, I need to make sure my transitions are in there. So I'm going to put my transition on. And this the end of this transition now needs to line up with this. I get my trim tool, and my trim tool is facing to the left, which means it will only affect the picture on the left. And in this case, I'm going to drag it to the right until that end of the transition lines up with my playhead. I think I've got it, so I'm going to go back and press play. Does that make sense how we time? Now, honestly, I do not like where that last one is timed. It doesn't. There's not a strong enough beat right there. But I wanted to show you that you can also trim to the right as long as your trim tool is facing to the left. So you're going to begin importing your music and your pictures. You're going to add your transitions between each and every picture. And then you're going to use the trim tool to begin timing out when one picture switches to another picture based on what you hear in the music.